Senior Assessor Vignar had experienced many things in their centuries of evaluating primitive worlds for the Galactic Council, but never had they experienced their ship trying to tear itself apart. Containment failure in quantum drive sectors 3 through 7. The ship's AI warned as another violent shudder ran through the vessel. The sleek assessment craft, pride of the Council's fleet, was dropping out of its perfect quantum alignment like a stone. Vignar's forehands flew across the crystalline control surfaces. Impossible. These systems are rated for any known quantum interference. Their lower left hand activated the emergency protocols while their upper hands tried to stabilize the rapidly deteriorating quantum matrix. Deploy emergency quantum shielding. Nothing happened. The familiar hum of advanced technology, which had been Vignar's constant companion for centuries, began to stutter and die. Warning lights flashed across every surface as system after system failed. Their carefully planned first contact with the primitive human species was about to become a very undignified crash landing. Engaging backup systems, the AI's voice degraded into static. Vignar felt their hearts sink as they recognized the sound of ancient mechanical gears engaging. The quaint backup systems they had argued against removing during the ship's last refit. Systems so old and basic they barely qualified as technology by Council standards. The vessel lurched as primitive gyroscopes and mechanical stabilizers engage. Vignar's pride suffered with each grinding sound of actual physical parts moving against each other. But they were alive to feel that embarrassment, which was more than could be said if they'd won the argument about removing these outdated systems. Through the view screen, the blue-green orb of Earth grew larger. Vignar could already see the primitive electromagnetic communications networks crisscrossing the planet's surface. Such a backward way to transmit information when any civilized species would use quantum entanglement arrays. The landing, if one could call this controlled crash a landing, was going to take place in what their data identified as a construction site in the human settlement of Singapore. Vignar could only watch helplessly as their ship, now operating on little more than springs and gears, plowed into a pit of earthen material. The impact was considerably softer than expected. Through the dust-covered view screen, Vignar observed something that made their facial scales flutter in disbelief. The humans had apparently anticipated their trajectory and rapidly repositioned several primitive lifting devices, cranes, according to the database, to catch their falling ship in a web of steel cables and counterweights. Simple machines, Vignar muttered with a mix of embarrassment and reluctant admiration. They caught us with simple machines. The ship's emergency hatch required manual operation. Another humiliation. As it swung open with a decidedly non-technological creak, Vignar found themselves face to face with a human in a yellow protective helmet. "You folks all right in there?" the human asked, remarkably calm about finding an alien spacecraft in their construction pit. "That was some quick thinking by our crane operators, but we should get you out before any fuel cells rupture." Vignar wanted to explain that their quantum power systems were far too advanced to rupture like some primitive chemical fuel cell. But given that these same advanced systems had just failed completely, they decided to accept the humans' help with what dignity they could muster. As human emergency response teams arrived, Vignar watched in fascination as they employed an array of entirely mechanical tools to secure and stabilize the crash site. Not a quantum field generator in sight, yet they worked with remarkable efficiency. Specialist Zen, Vignar called to their science officer, who was scanning the area with a partially functioning quantum analyzer. "Are you recording this?" "Affirmative, Senior Assessor. Though most of our advanced equipment is malfunctioning, the basic data collectors are operational. The humans appear to be using a system of purely mechanical advantages to..." "Wait." Zen's scales shifted to a pale shade of shock. "Senior Assessor, you need to see these readings. The humans' primitive tools, they're generating quantum field patterns that shouldn't be possible." Vignar looked from their disabled ship to the human machines still at work around them. Their assessment mission had just become far more interesting than expected, and somewhere in the back of their mind, a troubling question formed. What had caused their quantum systems to fail in the first place? Dr. Sarah Chen paused her quantum interference calculations when she heard the familiar creak of the workshop door downstairs. Even through 2 floors of her laboratory, she recognized her grandfather's shuffle. Right on schedule. It was nearly sunset, and he never missed their evening woodworking sessions. Just 5 more minutes. Gong gong. She called out, knowing he couldn't hear her through the floor, but doing it out of habit anyway. Her eyes returned to the quantum resonance chamber, where a particularly stubborn particle refused to maintain its superposition. A notification flashed across her augmented reality display. Galactic Assessment Team. Arrival imminent. Sarah sighed. The aliens have been poking around various research facilities since their embarrassing crash landing last week. She'd hoped they'd skip her small lab. The quantum particle destabilized again. Sarah glanced at her grandfather's old wooden toolbox in the corner, her secret weapon when modern technology proved troublesome. She reached for a hand-carved wooden wedge, a tool that had helped align more delicate equipment than she cared to admit to her colleagues. The lab door hissed open. Dr. Chen. The alien assessor's translator rendered their name as Vitnar. We are here to evaluate your quantum research facility. And they stopped, multifaceted eyes fixed on the wooden wedge in her hand. What is that primitive implement? Sarah smiled, sliding the wedge under one corner of the resonance chamber. This, just a tool my grandfather made. Sometimes the old ways work best. Impossible, declared a younger alien, apparently their science specialist. Quantum stabilization requires precisely calibrated field generators, not. They consulted their translator, carved tree segments. Sarah adjusted the wedge a fraction of a millimeter. The quantum particle in the chamber suddenly snapped into perfect superposition. You were saying? She asked, trying not to sound smug as their sensor arrays erupted with readings. Vidnar moved closer, all 4 hands operating different scanning devices. This cannot be correct. The quantum field readings around that wooden implement are impossible, Sarah suggested, like how it was impossible for primitive human machines to save your ship last week. Before Vignar could respond, the workshop door creaked again. This time, Sarah's grandfather shuffled into view, carrying his favorite handplane. Ah, Sarah, your alien friends are here. Good timing. That dining table we're working on needs its top flattened. They can watch a real quantum manipulation. He winked at her, speaking in Mandarin. Sarah struggled not to laugh at Vitnar's confused expression as their translator failed to capture her grandfather's joke. Gong gong. They don't know about. Sarah started, but her grandfather was already setting up his work. The aliens watched in bewilderment as the old man began planing the wood with practiced strokes. Their sensors, still active from scanning the wedge, suddenly lit up like festival lanterns. These readings, the science specialist whispered, the probability waves around his tool. They're being shaked. Directed. Senior assessor, this is beyond impossible. He's manipulating quantum fields with mechanical processes that shouldn't. Sarah's grandfather looked up from his work. Ah, your machines notice it too. Good. Sarah, bring your quantum friends closer. Show them how the grain affects the field. Vignar turned all 4 eyes to Sarah. You knew about this effect. Not exactly, Sarah admitted. But I always noticed my quantum experiments worked better when I used grandfather's tools to adjust the equipment. I thought it was just about precise mechanical control, but lately, she gestured to her own sensor readings. Well, you're seeing it too. Seeing what? Vitnar demanded. Sarah's grandfather answered before she could, still speaking Mandarin, still smiling. Seeing that quantum mechanics isn't just about fancy machines, young alien. It's about understanding the nature of reality. And sometimes, the best way to understand reality is to shape it with your own hands. The wooden shaving curling from his plane seemed to shimmer in the evening light, and Sarah's sensors showed impossible quantum patterns dancing in its wake. The assessment had just become a discovery. The chisel gleamed in the afternoon light as Sarah's grandfather lifted it from his toolbox. It was an unremarkable tool, just wood and steel, worn smooth by decades of use. But the alien sensors surrounding it hummed with an intensity that made Vignar's scales ripple. "Impossible readings," muttered Zen, the science specialist, adjusting their quantum analyzer for the 7th time. "The probability matrices around these implements are more stable than our most advanced containment fields." Sarah watched as her grandfather selected a piece of walnut, positioned the chisel, and began to work. With each stroke, the alien's instruments registered quantum fluctuations that shouldn't exist outside a stellar laboratory. "The effects are strongest with the older tools," Sarah explained, pointing to her own data display. "We've tested modern machine-made chisels. They show some quantum activity, but nothing like grandfather's hand-forged ones." Vignar's upper hands twitched toward their communicator, while their lower hands still clutched scanning devices. "The Council must be informed. This violates every known principle of quantum mechanical interaction." "Does it?" Sarah's grandfather asked, pausing his work. "Or does it simply show that your principles are incomplete?" His English was perfect now. He'd only used Mandarin earlier to make a point about assumptions. A shower of wood shavings fell, and Zen's quantum analyzer practically screamed. "Senior Assessor, the chisel, it's not just affecting local quantum states. It's creating them." Sarah moved to her main research terminal, pulling up comparison data. "Watch this," she said, splitting the screen between her grandfather's chisel work and readings from her quantum lab. "Every stroke of the chisel creates a cascade of quantum effects, but they're not random. They're intentional." Vignar finished, all 4 eyes wide. "Your grandfather is intentionally manipulating quantum fields with a piece of sharpened metal." The old man chuckled. "Not intentionally. At least, not the way you mean. I'm just doing what craftsmen have done for thousands of years, learning to work with the nature of the material." Sarah highlighted a particular data stream. "But that's just it. We're starting to think that on Earth, the nature of the material includes quantum effects we never recognized. Our tools evolved to work with these effects, even though we didn't know they existed." Vignar's scales shifted to a deep blue of intense concentration. "The quantum interference that crashed our ship might be related," Sarah nodded. "Your quantum drives encountered something they weren't designed to handle. The complex quantum fields that Earth's tools and craftspeople have been unconsciously manipulating for millennia." Her grandfather set down the chisel and picked up an ancient hammer. The wooden handle was smooth as silk from generations of use. "Shall we show them something really interesting?" Before Vignar could respond, the old man struck a precise blow on his chisel. The quantum analyzers went dark. Then they displayed readings that made Zen drop their data tablet. That's a contained universe," Zen whispered. "A perfect quantum replica of our local spacetime, generated by hitting metal with a stick." "Not just any stick," Sarah's grandfather corrected, holding up the hammer. "This hammer has shaped quantum fields for 3 generations. Every stroke added to its effect. We didn't know we were doing it, but we were teaching our tools to manipulate reality itself." Vignar stared at the hammer, then at their own highly advanced quantum manipulators. "Your entire species has been unknowingly practicing quantum engineering through mechanical tools." The implications. A new alarm chirped from their communicator. Vignar's scales paled. "The Council has received our preliminary readings. They're concerned. A ship of theoretical specialists is being dispatched. They'll want to understand exactly what's happening here." Sarah met her grandfather's eyes. His expression was serious now. "Perhaps," he said softly, "they should be less concerned with understanding what we're doing, and more concerned with why their advanced technology never discovered these effects themselves." The chisel lay on the workbench, seemingly innocent, but now they all understood. Humanity's primitive tools weren't primitive at all. They were something far more profound, and potentially far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The images flooded Sarah's holographic display. a Maasai craftsman's spear generating quantum entanglement fields in Kenya, Japanese sword-folding techniques creating temporal stability patterns, ancient Egyptian copper chisels showing evidence of probability manipulation. Each report confirmed what they discovered in her grandfather's workshop, but on a global scale. Every culture, Vidnar observed, their scales shimmering with excitement. Every human civilization developed tools that interact with quantum fields. How did we miss this? Sarah zoomed in on footage from a Mexican carpentry shop. Because you were looking for advanced technology. We were just building things. A new alert flashed across her screen. Another alien ship had entered orbit, bringing their total to 7. The theoretical specialists were arriving in force. They're scared, her grandfather said quietly, setting down the ancient plane he'd been examining. They've built their civilization on controlling quantum mechanics through technology. Now they discover humans have been doing it by accident for thousands of years. Vidnar's communicator chimed with yet another priority message. The Council is divided. Some want to classify Earth as a restricted zone. Others want to study your methods. A few. They hesitated. A few what? Sarah asked, though she suspected she knew. A few suggest your species is too dangerous to leave unsupervised. That quantum manipulation without proper controls could threaten the fabric of space-time itself. Sarah's grandfather laughed, a sound that made Vidnar's scales ripple in surprise. Proper controls. Watch this. He picked up a hammer. Not the quantum active one from earlier, but a simple modern tool from the hardware store. With practiced precision, he struck a chisel. The quantum analyzers registered a small but distinct field. New tools can learn, he explained, just as the old ones did. Every strike, every cut, every careful action teaches them to work with reality's deeper nature. It's not the tool that matters most. It's the hands that guide it. A notification interrupted them. 3 more alien ships had appeared in orbit. Sarah pulled up a visual, and her breath caught. These weren't the sleek research vessels of the theoretical specialists. These were warships. Vidnar, she said carefully, why would the Council send military vessels to observe a primitive species? The alien scales shifted to a deep gray. They wouldn't. Unless. Their 4 hands moved rapidly over their communicator. These ships aren't Council authorized. They're from the quantum orthodoxy faction. Extremists who believe allowing unauthorized quantum manipulation threatens galactic stability. Extremists with warships, Sarah's grandfather noted dryly. Never a good combination. The workshop's lights flickered as energy readings spiked overhead. The warships were scanning Earth with powerful quantum sensors, probably looking for evidence to justify their intervention. They don't understand, Vidnar said, genuine fear in their voice. Your quantum manipulation is woven into your civilization. It's in your tools, your techniques, your very approach to physical work. Trying to suppress it could. A new set of readings appeared on Sarah's display. The warship's scans were interfering with Earth's natural quantum fields, the same fields that humanity's tools had evolved to work with. Distortions were appearing in probability matrices worldwide. They're going to cause exactly what they're trying to prevent, Sarah realized. Their attempts to detect our quantum manipulation are destabilizing the fields our tools help maintain. Her grandfather reached for his toolbox, movements deliberate and calm despite the crisis. Then perhaps it's time to show them what human tools can really do when we use them purposefully. Vidnar stared at the old man. What are you suggesting? You said we've been practicing quantum engineering without knowing it for thousands of years. He selected a set of chisels, each one humming with accumulated quantum potential. Well, now we know it. And if those ships up there want to see what human quantum manipulation looks like. He set the tools out in a precise arrangement that made the alien sensors explode with readings. Then let's give them a demonstration. The workshop hummed with tension as Sarah's grandfather arranged his tools in a pattern that seemed random to the aliens, but made perfect sense to any experienced woodworker. Above them, the quantum orthodoxy's warships continued their aggressive scanning, unknowingly destabilizing Earth's natural quantum fields. What your scanners fail to understand, the old man explained, selecting a chisel with the care of a surgeon choosing a scalpel, is that the quantum effects aren't just in the tools. They're in us. Vicnar's scales flickered with confusion. In you. Sarah's eyes widened as she watched her quantum displays. Of course, it's not just the physical tools. It's the skill, the experience, the understanding of how to use them. She rapidly typed calculations into her system. Every craftsperson who's ever mastered their tools has been unconsciously training themselves in quantum manipulation. Her grandfather nodded, making a precise cut that sent the alien sensors into overdrive. Why do you think apprenticeships traditionally took years? We weren't just learning to use the tools. We were learning to feel the way reality works. A sharp alarm cut through the workshop. The warship's scans were intensifying, creating dangerous quantum instabilities in the upper atmosphere. They were looking for weapons, not realizing they were about to trigger exactly what they feared. The quantum fields are collapsing, Zen reported, their scales pale with fear. The natural harmonics your species has maintained for millennia are destabilizing. If they continue, they'll create a cascade failure. Sarah finished. Earth's quantum fields will collapse, taking their ship's quantum drives with them. She looked at her grandfather. And our tools won't work anymore either. The old man smiled, reaching for his oldest hammer. Unless we show them what a true master craftsman can do when they understand what they're working with. Vidnar's communicator crackled with urgent messages from the council ships in orbit. The orthodoxy vessels were charging weapons, claiming they needed to neutralize the quantum anomaly that was Earth. Watch, Sarah's grandfather said softly. With movements honed by decades of practice, he began to work. Each strike of his hammer, each cut of his chisel, each careful placement of his tools created precise quantum manipulations that even the aliens' most advanced computers couldn't match. Sarah's displays showed something extraordinary. The destabilized quantum fields weren't collapsing. They were being reshaped, guided by her grandfather's skilled hands and lifetime of experience. Impossible, Zen whispered. He's achieving quantum coherence with mechanical processes. The probability matrices, they're responding to his intent. Not just his, Sarah realized, watching the readings. Look, all over the planet, craftspeople are unconsciously stabilizing their local quantum fields. Their skilled work with traditional tools is naturally countering the destabilization. Vicnar's scales shifted to a deep blue of revelation. The orthodoxy is wrong. This isn't dangerous quantum manipulation. It's quantum harmony. Your species evolved alongside these fields, learned to work with them through physical tools and accumulated skill. You're not threatening galactic stability. We're demonstrating a whole new way to understand it. Sarah finished. Above them, the warship's sensors began to fail as Earth's quantum fields stabilized into new patterns, more complex and resilient than before. Her grandfather set down his hammer with satisfaction. For all your advanced technology, you forgot something important. True mastery isn't about controlling nature. It's about understanding it deeply enough to work in harmony with it. The quantum readings across all their instruments settled into a perfect, stable pattern, one that matched exactly the traditional measurements master craftspeople had used for millennia without knowing their deeper significance. Sarah looked at her grandfather's tools with new appreciation. We weren't practicing primitive technology all these years. No, Vidnar agreed, their scales shimmering with respect. You were mastering the art of quantum harmony. And I believe the galaxy has much to learn from your methods. Sarah's grandfather's workshop had become an unlikely nexus of galactic science. Alien theoretical physicists huddled around workbenches, watching in fascination as human craftspeople demonstrated traditional techniques. Each demonstration revealed new aspects of quantum manipulation that their advanced technology had never detected. Notice how she angles the plane, Sarah explained to a group of council scientists, pointing to a master carpenter at work. That technique has been passed down for generations. We thought it was just about grain direction, but look at your quantum readings." The alien sensors showed complex probability waves forming and reforming with each stroke of the plane. What humans had always called feeling the grain turned out to be an intuitive understanding of quantum field manipulation. "Remarkable," Vidnar observed, their scales shimmering with excitement. "But watch what happens when we combine approaches." They adjusted a quantum field generator to harmonize with the carpenter's work. The wood beneath the plane began to glow softly as two forms of quantum manipulation, one technological, one intuitive, worked in concert. The resulting material was unlike anything either species had seen before, wood that maintained quantum superposition while retaining its natural grain. "That's it," Sarah exclaimed, rushing to her equations. "The missing link between our approaches. We weren't seeing the whole picture because we were looking at it from opposite directions." Her grandfather looked up from where he was teaching an alien scientist proper chisel technique. "Like trying to understand a tree by studying only the branches or only the roots," he suggested. Zen, who had become their primary research partner, manipulated a holographic model of the quantum interactions. Human tools and techniques evolved to work with quantum fields naturally, while our technology tried to impose control on them. "But together we can do this," Sarah said, activating their latest prototype. It looked deceptively simple, a traditional wooden mallet merged with alien quantum technology. She handed it to her grandfather. "Would you do the honors?" The old man hefted the tool, testing its balance with the expertise of decades. "Weight's perfect," he noted, "almost like it wants to be used." The assembled scientists held their breath as he struck a precise blow on a piece of oak. The wood didn't just split, it phased, creating a perfect quantum duplicate of itself while maintaining structural integrity. "Quantum replication through mechanical force," Vidnar breathed. "Do you understand what this means? Every construction project in the galaxy could be transformed. No more resource shortages, no more quantum field instabilities." A priority alert flashed across their screens. The quantum orthodoxy faction wasn't taking their defeat well. Reports showed them rallying support among conservative elements in the council, arguing that allowing untrained primitives access to quantum manipulation threatened the galactic order. "They still don't understand," Sarah's grandfather said, setting down the quantum mallet. "This isn't about technological advancement or political power. It's about harmony, finding the natural rhythms in the universe and working with them." Sarah noticed something interesting on her displays. "Look at this pattern," she said, highlighting a quantum signature. "It appears in every successful merge of our techniques, but it also shows up in Earth's natural quantum field, and in the quantum fields around every inhabited world," Zen added, checking their data. "We just never recognized it because we were too focused on controlling quantum effects rather than working with them." Vidnar's scales shifted to a deep purple of determination. Then perhaps it's time for the galaxy to learn a new way of working. Not through control, but through understanding. Sarah watched as more craftspeople and scientists filed into the workshop, each bringing their own knowledge and perspectives. Humans teaching aliens the feel of proper tool use, aliens helping humans understand the quantum principles they'd been unknowingly manipulating for millennia. "We're going to need a bigger workshop," her grandfather commented dryly, but his eyes sparkled with the excitement of discovery. The quantum mallet pulsed softly on the workbench, a symbol of what was possible when ancient wisdom and advanced science worked in harmony. Above them, more council ships arrived, but these came seeking knowledge, not conflict. The universe, it seemed, was ready for a new kind of craftsmanship. The warning came at dawn. Sarah was calibrating a quantum-enhanced lathe when Vidnar burst into the workshop, their scales a pale shade of terror she'd never seen before. "The orthodoxy. They've done something unthinkable. They're trying to collapse Earth's quantum fields to prove our discoveries are fraudulent." Sarah's grandfather looked up from where he was teaching quantum harmonic woodcarving to a group of alien apprentices. "How?" Zen's holographic display showed a network of quantum disruptors positioned around Earth's orbit. They're using synchronized quantum nullifiers to cancel out your planet's natural fields. They believe without these fields, your primitive tools will stop working, proving they were never manipulating quantum effects in the first place. But that's insane, Sarah protested, watching the readings spike. Earth's quantum fields have evolved with us for millions of years. Disrupting them suddenly cooled. A violent tremor shook the workshop. Tools rattled on their hooks as reality itself seemed to shudder. Could tear apart the fabric of space-time, Vitnar finished grimly. The orthodoxy doesn't understand what they're interfering with. Your planet's quantum fields don't just affect Earth. They're part of a complex network spanning the galaxy. Sarah's grandfather reached for his oldest tools, the ones humming with generations of quantum potential. Then we'll have to show them what master craftsmen can do in a crisis. Another tremor, stronger this time. Sarah's displays showed quantum distortions spreading like cracks through the local space-time continuum. The orthodoxy's nullifiers were creating a cascade effect that their own technology couldn't control. Their quantum drives are failing, Zen reported, monitoring the orbital situation. The disruption is feeding back through their own systems. If it reaches their containment fields, they'll trigger a quantum collapse that could destroy half the galaxy, Vitnar finished. And our technology can't stop it. The distortions are too chaotic for our quantum stabilizers to process. Sarah watched her grandfather calmly laying out his tools. Chisels, planes, hammers, each one shaped by years of use to work in harmony with quantum fields. Maybe we don't need to process them, she said slowly. Maybe we need to work with them. Understanding dawned in Vitnar's eyes. Like shaping wood with the grain instead of against it. Exactly. Sarah turned to the assembled human craftspeople and alien scientists. We need every master artisan, every tool that's learned to work with quantum fields naturally. Not to fight the distortions, but to reshape them. Her grandfather nodded, already demonstrating the technique. Each tool stroke sent ripples through the quantum field, not trying to force stability but encouraging it, like a gardener training a vine. Around the world, other workshops received the message. Blacksmiths, carpenters, sculptors, and artisans of every tradition began working with deliberate purpose. Their tools evolved over millennia to manipulate quantum fields instinctively, sent harmonizing waves through the destabilized space-time. In orbit, the orthodoxy watched in disbelief as their readings showed the impossible. Earth's quantum fields weren't collapsing. They were dancing, shifting like a living thing under the guidance of countless human hands. Look, Zen whispered, pointing to their quantum displays. The chaotic disruptions were being transformed into stable patterns, more complex and beautiful than anything their technology had achieved. Sarah's grandfather guided his chisel through another precise cut, sending waves of quantum harmony rippling outward. Every good craftsman knows, he said calmly, even as reality itself hung in the balance. You don't fight your material. You listen to it, learn from it, work with its nature, not against it. The distortions began to settle into new configurations. What the orthodoxy had meant as a weapon of destruction was becoming something else entirely. A demonstration of humanity's deepest wisdom about working with the fundamental forces of reality. Vitnar's scales shifted to a color of profound respect. They tried to prove you were primitives, they said softly. Instead, you've shown us what true mastery looks like. The quantum nullifiers fell silent, their energy absorbed and transformed by the coordinated work of countless human artisans. Above them, the fabric of space-time began to heal itself, stronger than before. In the workshop, Sarah's grandfather set down his chisel with a satisfied nod. Now then, he said, shall we teach them how to build something properly? 1 year later, Sarah's grandfather's workshop had transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. The simple space had expanded into the Quantum Crafting Academy, where wooden workbenches sat alongside quantum computers, and the sound of hammers mingled with the hum of field generators. Remember, Sarah's grandfather told his latest class, a mix of humans and aliens from across the galaxy. The tool is just an extension of understanding. Whether it's a chisel or a quantum manipulator, what matters is how you learn to work with the nature of reality. Vitnar, now the Academy's chief theoretical advisor, watched as their scales rippled in harmony with the quantum fields that filled the workshop. The Council's latest report confirms it. Incorporating human crafting principles has stabilized quantum technology across 17 sectors. Sarah nodded, making a small adjustment to a student's grip on a quantum-enhanced plane. And how are the Orthodoxy's worlds doing? Still refusing our methods officially. Vitnar's scales showed amusement, while quietly sending students through intermediaries. Even they can't deny the results. Above them, through the workshop's new transparent ceiling, they could see the orbital shipyards where the greatest change was taking place. Traditional human shipwrights worked alongside alien quantum engineers, building vessels that combined the best of both approaches. The ship's quantum drives no longer fought against spacetime. They worked with it, guided by principles that craftspeople had known for millennia. "Watch this," Sarah's grandfather said, picking up his old hammer, now studied and replicated as the template for a new generation of quantum tools. With a single precise strike, he demonstrated the technique that had revolutionized galactic engineering, a perfect blend of mechanical skill and quantum manipulation. The students gasped as the material shifted, its quantum state aligning perfectly with its physical form. Even after a year, the sight of primitive tools achieving what advanced technology had struggled with still inspired awe. "The galaxy feared us at first," Sarah remarked to Vignar as they watched the class practice. "They thought our quantum manipulation was dangerous because it wasn't controlled by computers and safety protocols. We didn't understand," Vidnar admitted. "Your species spent thousands of years developing the ultimate safety protocol, craftsmanship, the discipline, the respect for materials, the accumulated wisdom of generations. It was all teaching you how to work in harmony with the universe's deepest nature." A loud cheer drew their attention. One of the alien students, a being from a highly technological species, had just successfully used a traditional woodplane for the first time. The quantum fields around their work rippled with perfect stability. "That's what I love most about this," Sarah's grandfather said, watching the students' achievement. "We're not just teaching technique, we're sharing a way of understanding that bridges worlds." Sarah checked her quantum displays, smiling at the readings. The students' success had created ripples of harmony that spread far beyond the workshop. Earth's quantum fields, nearly destroyed by the Orthodoxy's attack a year ago, had grown stronger and more complex as more beings learned to work with them consciously. "We're recording similar effects across the galaxy," Vidnar reported. "Every graduated student becomes a nexus of quantum harmony, spreading stability wherever they practice their craft." The old man picked up a piece of wood, feeling its grain with fingers trained by decades of experience. "You know what this reminds me of? Teaching you to plane wood when you were 5, Sarah. You were so frustrated that you couldn't get it perfect immediately. And you told me that real mastery isn't about being perfect," Sarah remembered. "It's about learning to listen," her grandfather finished. "To the wood, to the tool, to the reality of what you're working with." Turns out that applies to quantum physics as much as woodworking. Outside, a new ship rose from the orbital yards, its quantum drive humming in perfect harmony with spacetime. Inside the workshop, another student mastered their first tool, adding their own note to the universal symphony of craft and science united. Vidnar's scales shifted to a deep shade of contentment. Perhaps that's what all our advanced technology was missing. The wisdom to listen before trying to command. Sarah's grandfather just smiled, running his hands over his tools with the satisfaction of a master who had helped shape not just wood, but the future of galactic civilization. "Now then," he said, turning back to his class, "who's ready to learn how to really build something?"